Good afternoon. I'm definitely going to need the Lord's help making this video today. So, Lord, help me because I actually just got the idea in the middle of watching another video. And it's about hell. So, super fun. This is actually like, if we're going to go in the order of my favorite topics, it's kind of up there. Like it's kind of in the top five. And it's not so much that I love to talk about hell, but it's just like it's really important. It's really fascinating, and it's one of these ways into the bigness and greatness of God. It's one of the only ways. People are obviously, aside from the crucifixion, Jesus, which kind of goes over most people's heads. Unfortunately, there's something about hell that is, universally gets people on the same page in a way that the gospel doesn't seem to be able to. The Bible, you being a creation and alive on the earth, um, it doesn't get people as focused on what is important as hell does. So it's unfortunate that it doesn't get talked about as much in church, but it's only because it does after it immediately gets people focused, then it makes people freak out and check out and be really mad. But for those brief 5 seconds, it just seems like things lock into place. And uh, I don't know, something about that I really like. So I spent a lot of time thinking about hell, how to put hell in the proper, to think about it in a proper way. Hell testimonies are very compelling, very educational. I've learned a lot by watching them. I've put a lot of things that were sort of mysteries in the Word. I was able to properly place a lot of things. So there's a lot to be learned from hell. Um, but I think primarily the thing that I feel like God was giving me was just sort of a guide on how to sort of, I don't know if this is like you sort of self deliver yourself from the bowels of hell if you're just at home watching YouTube and you just click on this video. But it's very like a to do thing that I've got laid out here. So the first thing I was thinking of is like when people first hear about hell, or they hear out of nowhere and uh, they hear about hell, and a lot of people just kind of like, no, maybe they've had trauma, maybe hell is just scary, and that's kind of how it's able to hide. Because if you do have some sort of trauma around it, um, you can sort of make that as the excuse as why you don't want to talk about it. But the thing is, like, nobody really wants to talk about it. Over time, I've gotten to a place where I want to talk about it. But even that is, it's not fun. I want to talk about it, but nobody else does. And so therefore it's not fun. Um, it's a visceral reaction. But at the same time, when you start to talk about it, people have this, like, they almost can't get the words out fast enough, because when do you ever talk about this stuff? So there's a lot of backed up um, conversation that never gets to happen. So I think about the common reactions, the things that people seem to have prepared already if you're going to bring up this topic, because it shows that at some point they have thought about it and thought about what they have to say about it, what would be their response or rebuttal, because which is fascinating in and of itself when you see that people have this sort of self-defense mechanism against it already. And they're thinking like, well, if somebody ever asked me about hell, this is what I would say about it. Or, it's how to get the hell concept to go away indefinitely and never, and have the issue settled if anyone ever tries to bring that up to you, so that you never have to worry about it again. And that you can defeat them publicly, and that can show that hell is not anything anyone needs to worry about. And that is, aside from that being the wrong way to go about that, there's a reason why you even feel like you need to do that. I mean, let's sit and think about the fact that you have to do that at all, and it's pretty much a universal thing. These are, again, these subtle proofs of God, like I was talking about in the previous video. Recently, I was thinking about the fact that, a lot of people like to make fun of Christians for if they believe the 6,000 year thing and they just believe everything that in the Bible is true. And then you get a lot of these other Christians who completely lost the plot and missed the point, going, well, I don't believe, I believe that the evolutionary model that we probably were this, but the Bible is, but it's fine if there's some things that, we can just glean what we need and just whatever, all that double talk of how you're just going to glean what you want from the book, and it doesn't matter that half of the stuff in it you don't believe and isn't real, like whatever. But the thing is, the thing that people really miss, and it's just, I don't know, it's easy for me to do this, but like what I find interesting is that the Bible is maybe the only book, you've got this book that exclusively claims to be the written record that basically dictated by God, which people have yet to really address in a proper way, because we know just by living on the earth, everyone sort of should have their own individual sort of testimony about what it's like living on the earth. And that having a bunch of dudes collectively get together to write a single book that never strays off topic, it's just really just in and of itself something that is hard to do. Nobody's really trying to do it. Nobody's trying to keep a coherent narrative over the course of thousands of years to compile a book. And then I think that people go, at first glance, you go, well, that's, of course people do that. And then you try to point it out and you can't really, though, because, it's not one of these super whopping miracles, but this is the type of stuff that is everywhere. The fact that you've got the book the one that is exclusively talking about the single God that ordained the whole thing. And it seems to be the only one concerned with telling you like the very, very beginning story of how the whole thing started, day one, what day one was like, how it went down, who was there, the order of operations, the people that were created, and then the eventual, the eventual breakdown of that. Then, the next thing after that, and then where those people ended up and where those people came from and how, like, all of the genealogies and where they branched off to and where they moved to and where their locations were. Like, it's things that, it's the type of narrative that if God were talking to you, it would be the type of things that concerned God, but also concerned you. Like, it's just interesting enough to you to be authoritative and something that's like, wow, really, for real? But it's also something that's just interesting enough to God that God would bring up to you. It's like if your dad told you a story, your dad is going to pick the things in the story that he thinks are going to be of interest to you, but it's also going to be of equal interest to him. You know what I mean? And we just don't see that with these other religious books. Basically, what I'm saying is it's talking about the things that you would think God would care about, but also sort of answering an unanswered question about what you're doing here and what this whole thing, what you're doing here and what you're doing here, and sort of the history of that. So um, that to me, just that it informs me more than looking at just statistically, well, if this is from God, then it should be perfect and all the dates should line up with what we know of history. It's like, okay, well, again, you're flawed. So you probably don't have, I'm not surprised that you can't find the Adam and Eve's bones. Like, I'm not surprised. I'm not expecting that. I would expect you to burn them and hide them before I'd expect you to find them anyway. But that to me is more compelling than well, we didn't find that, and there's 10 million other origin stories, and all of these other things that just are supposed to poke holes in something rather than um, provide something better. Like nothing is providing anything better. It's just about poking holes in the current thing that's pretty compelling, and just constantly sort of tearing it down and trying to make fun of people and using people who went to school for a super long time to talk your head off and make you doubt like that. None of that is actual evidence. That's just stuff. So it still remains something uh, that I feel like all of humanity has yet to top or replace it with something good that also explains the world. Like it might be a good explanation, but it doesn't explain the world at all. Like, thank you for your evolutionary theory that's long and drawn out. And if this was a movie, I would probably leave in the middle. But you still haven't explained like why everybody like yawns at the same time and why there's laughter. Like this is a terrible explanation. But anyways, but I don't know why I said all that except for to say that there's not that much talk about hell in the Bible. And the first person to really talk about hell in any kind of depth is Jesus, which seems kind of strange, but I think it's mainly because once he came on the scene, then it was going to be a lot less grace given on the, um, once you leave this earth. And you can't say that you didn't know anymore because now he's here and things are, the management is about to shift. But I think that people have a lot of different reactions to the idea of hell. I don't think it was as controversial back then either. There's always been some sort of underworld and, rulers of the underworld, and whether there's gradations of this or that, purgatory, blah, 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 which do I believe in those things? I think that by and large, like the things in the spiritual are vast, and God has a way of explaining things. It's just like, again, a parent explaining things to you. And it's like, this is what you need to know. Okay. You're like asking your parents like about driving or whatever. And he's just like, listen, you just need to, this is where you're at. Don't crash my car. Um, you know, don't, whatever. It's like, there's tons of information out there that your parents are not necessarily shielding you from. It's just like they're looking at you. They see that you're just picking your nose and you have no idea what's going on. And they have to figure out a way to get the information to you that's going to actually serve you. And then eventually, maybe you get a little bit older and later on, you can come back and say, thank you for doing it in the way that you did it because X, Y, and Z. So, and that's not God hiding things from you. You're a moron. Like, stop acting like God is hiding things from you and you could be at your highest potential as a God if he didn't, try to keep. It's like, dude, you don't even want that. You want a parent who's going to give you the tools that you need. And that's what God is doing. But anyway, let me get back to hell. I just wanted to give a little preface. But the first thing I think about is the reaction that you get as soon as you mention hell being a real place and people are there. And there's usually a couple common ones. The main one is the belligerent, instant hatred and hating that hell is even being brought up, and that you could think that it could possibly be a real place. There's actually like there's someone that I don't know, they were kind of an acquaintance back in the day, like 20ish years ago, we probably met, and now they're on Facebook, and they hell isn't a real place, and everything they post is just kind of this esoteric. It's not even esoteric. It's just like this blah knowledge that has no stakes because there's no hell anymore. And so we kind of had like a debate about it. And his thing was that to think that there was a hell was this. First of all, he had this thing about hell being a thing that was made up to control people. And when people say that, I don't know why people like the only thing that I can see that what people would say that is just because they need, and this it all goes under the same vein. They need to go back to sleep. They need to not be worried about this place because if they started worrying about this place, they fear that they will never do anything again. They won't get out of bed. They won't be able to just get through anything, any simple joy anymore, because they'll just be consumed with anxiety about this place. And so, what do you need to do? You need to come up with reasons why you don't need to worry about it. And for the Christian, maybe that's well, but I'm saved and I know I got salvation. And then for somebody who's not, then it's well, but I'm a good person, and I should make the cut. And then for other people, it's hell's not even a real place. It's just something that the Catholic Church made up, Rome made up, the Vatican made up, Protestants made up. Somebody made it up to control people. Now I don't know if you just like have you paid attention to humans at all? Like you got to show me another instance where this happened. Now, I know that there's like family lore. Like, I do remember watching this thing. I think it was TikTok, and it was like the parents told the child that one of their older brother like turned into a bunny or turned into a frog, I think maybe. Turned into a frog because he didn't brush his teeth or some other thing. And so they literally had pictures of the brother in the family album as a frog. Like, like so I can see that a little bit, but even that is like, that's dedication, first of all. It makes me laugh and it's hilarious. And we don't even know if it worked. We just know that that's what they decided to do. But even that, we're showing that's a family. The only people that would do that is like parents who love you and don't want to spank you because they find it abhorrent and they just don't want to do it. So now they have to find a different way to control your behavior. That is not the world at large. No church is going to make up hell, dude. It's just not going to happen. Nobody wants to make, nobody, even God is not going to make up hell to get you to like fall in line. It's not working, first of all. So why would he do that? It legit exists. And then, so there's that. But then also, you got the people who say, how could I love a God? Well, let me go jump around here because I do want to say that while you are thinking that hell is fairy tales, there's another spiritual entity that also has a vested interest in agreeing with you that hell is a fairy tale, and that is the devil. And this is why you can't play around with this stuff at all. Like, you cannot play around with this. You got to make sure, you got to find out if God is real and Satan is real. Because if there is a super powerful entity out there that absolutely hates God, that rejected God, has now taken extreme measures to enslave the world and make sure that you are separated from God indefinitely, you really need to make sure that that is real, because your entire way of making decisions could be in question if you don't realize that that's what's going on. Um, and again, this is another one of these ideas that people like to reject, just period, point blank, just like the Bible being true and God being real, because it just seems really preposterous and big and large and strange. And just when you're trying to evaluate it, you look out your window. I'm looking out my window. I see that the trees are growing and it's a sunny day outside. There's grass. The trash guy is coming. So their bins are out. It's like, Satan, where? Like, what are we talking about? Are we just scared of our own shadow? And you can say that because you're using weird stuff to evaluate. It's just kind of like, they're two separate things. It's like, how do you evaluate whether your diamond is real? Do you put it in a tub and see if it floats? Like, you don't even know. Like, is that even how you're supposed to do it? Well, this diamond isn't real because I put it in water and it floated straight up to the top. Is that even how you evaluate it? How do you explain all the bad? You got no devil, you got no God. How are you explaining the bad? It shouldn't be there. Like, it shouldn't be there. You can't just go, well, some things, some people. No. How do you explain the bad? How do you explain that we know what the bad is? You have so much stuff to explain if you don't have God and you don't have a devil, an adversary, Satan, Beelzebub, whatever. Oh, they're all titles. Yeah, so what? Good thing. We probably shouldn't be speaking the man's name. So if we know what it is, he that must not be named, okay? And not because he's like super bad scary. I mean, a little bit, but mostly like just we don't need the energy. You don't need to attract it. You're already attracting it in all of these unseen ways because there's so many traps set for you. Like, we don't need the extra static. So yes, you've got, in the event that God exists and Satan exists, naturally, it doesn't take a superhuman genius mind. He's probably going to either convince you that hell is a super great place. It's not that bad. It doesn't exist at all. Hey, look over there is also a popular thing that he uses. Want some money? These types of things are what he would probably use. Because if hell is real, he wants you to go there. Because it's super funny to him. It's super satisfying to him because he's not where God is anymore, and he's got like a super beef that you can't even imagine. And he's everything that God is not because he was removed from God's presence, but he still, I imagine, retained all of the splendor that God gave him in a way, whatever he was created with. Same thing with us. So yeah, he's not going to tell you the truth. So the devil has nothing but time. He has no other job. He doesn't have a family. He doesn't have anything to do but make sure that you are hellbound, preferably without you knowing about it. But sometimes he can get the people who still know and still choose to go for whatever reason. And I don't know if I started off talking about the fact that I was watching a video about this lady who went to hell, and that's what's inspired this. But I was watching a video of this lady that went to hell, and it inspired this. And the lady in question was actually Christian, and it wasn't that she died and went. It was she sort of was taken on a trip, I guess. She had a vision, and this happens. I won't say it's common, but among experiences like this, wasn't near death or anything. It was just a vision. It is pretty, I would say maybe like a quarter of all of the visions that happen is this type of thing where you experience hell. You realize that it's real. You realize that something is in the way and keeping you from going to heaven, even though you're a Christian. And it can be very confusing because people kind of go, well, what? I thought, because even if you're willing to entertain hell, what makes people confused and make people go, oh, you know what? Forget it. This thing is ridiculous. Is the fact that, wait, he's a Christian and he went. I thought he did the thing. I thought he was baptized. I thought he was in the choir. I thought he was the pastor, blah, blah, blah. And so then it becomes very scary like, well, if these people are going, then what chance do I have? Yada, yada, yada. And I don't mean to yada, 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 because it is quite scary. And it's something that you need to figure out. And you don't need to just give up and go, well, none of this makes sense. Does it really not? Because basically everything that the Bible is telling you is period, point blank what it is. That's why it's very bad to go through and change things and go, well, maybe it means this, maybe it means that, or oh, something was taken out, or something was added to it, or oh, this secret gospel over here, because the answers are all there. You just gotta like sit with the book and not change anything, and realize. And once you do that, you're better able to identify all of the sort of what do you call it? Anything that you have acquired over time, any ideas that you have, any habits that you have, anything that is not of God, even if it's good or bad, usually the bad stuff right away. And if you're a Christian and those bad things go away and you're like, oh, yeah, God is real, hallelujah, there's still probably some not so great things that you've accepted as either neutral or positive that are not. And sometimes it's stuff that you've acquired over time through this interaction or this thing that happened to you, or, it's a bit like therapy in that way where, there's something that happened to you and you vowed never to let people get close to you or whatever. Sometimes it's like that. Sometimes it's like, hey, there's nothing wrong with having a whatever, smoking a joint before bed or whatever. I don't know. Just something that is, and God tends to do these things in chunks, not all at once. But it's all about, you're basically going to spend your entire life getting to perfection. You're never going to achieve that, obviously. But that's what you're supposed to be doing your entire life. It's not just going to church and staying away from the club, and that's just kind of how you live your life. You're constantly perfecting yourself, and ideally that is bringing you closer and closer to God the more that you do that, which is the benefit. And the closer you are to God, the closer you are to wholeness and peace, and just living unbothered is super great. So yeah, but if you're just like, well, and the thing is, it is challenging, like, and it sounds scary if you're not a Christian and you're hearing stories about other Christians who, when they tell you their story, and that was the thing with this lady, like, she was telling the story and she was like, yeah, no, we served in leadership and we did this and we did that. And even I was listening, I was like, okay, I'm trying to figure out where she's going to say like she went wrong or what happened. Like they started a drug ring, like where is this going? But she was basically talking about things going on with the church that she was in, and God was telling her to leave, but she didn't know if that was God telling her to leave or not. And so she justified that with, a lot of spiritual things, and it just gets confusing. And I would equate that to, like, if you become a rock climber and you're like climbing rocks and that's what you do for fun, like at no point during your rock climbing adventure, like maybe you've never rock climbed in your life and you think it's super hard and super tough and you admire the people that do it. And that's fine. And then you find out like one of them fell to their death. It's like, oh my gosh, if that person falls to their death, what chance do I have? And yeah, to a degree, you're right. they have training and you don't. But at the same time, it's not that much of a difference. Like, you're both still subject to gravity. Rock climbing is just inherently dangerous. And even if you have super balls training, at any point you could get full of yourself. You could be trying to pull a prank on somebody and have it go wrong, or you pick the wrong rock. You think you can do it, and then you end up you can't. It's like there's still human error. There's still these things that make you could get so used to it. You've had so many successful climbs that you just really start to think that absolutely nothing can happen to you. And then, whoops, you find out that you're just as subject to gravity as everybody else. Like, that's really what it's like. So, and if you go, well, then I'm just never going to climb rocks because that's crazy. I'm never going to, even attempt that because you could still die. Like, I don't blame you, but that's where the rock climbing metaphor breaks down. Like, although it doesn't, like, I understand, but in the sense that Christianity is not like a risk, any more of a risk than not being a Christian. I mean, not being a Christian is still the greater risk, but at no point are you safe while you're on the earth. Is the point? There's no point where it's safe. The devil, if you are refusing to become a Christian, or even just if you just have to take the spiritual journey and you just refuse to start with Christianity and you're going to just start with all these other things and cross them off the list, whatever. The point is that if you're not a Christian, then Satan is going to do what he needs to do to make you feel like you're safe here, and make it not seem like there's any risk. And he's going to make Christianity look like just the most ridiculous decision you could possibly make. If you're a Christian, he's going to you're basically going to spend your life with him trying to get you off your game. Like, and that's pretty obnoxious, but it is what it is. It is what it is. So he's going to spend the time, getting you distracted by this or that person, or, if he can't get you to completely take your eye off of ministry or the things that matter, then he's going to get you lifted in pride. He's going to bring you, he's going to make sure that you believe in some weird doctrine, or it doesn't even have to be weird. It could just be slightly off. Like this lady who was giving the testimony, she sort of got lured in by the good, which had nothing to do with God. It was just good. And so she felt like there wasn't that much danger to it. And she ended up really being in disobedience. And when you're in disobedience, you're not really able to, you get cut off from repentance and all of these things that help you do the journey, because the journey doesn't end when you become a Christian. So if you don't have access to like the repentance, if you can't feel a conviction anymore because you're in ministry, so it's like, what do I need to be convicted of? Like, I'm showing up to the things. I'm one of the only people that's serving. I got this accolade. I'm getting praised. I laid hands on somebody and they got healed. Like, and you're using that as your thing of like, oh, I'm good, instead of being like, Lord, am I good? Which is really like literally the only difference is like where you have to literally ask God because you really just don't know and you can't discern it. You're just like, Lord, am I okay? Like, I really need you to tell me. If that goes away because you are sniffing your own farts and you're just like, no, I'm totally okay, and you're using yesterday's victories to gauge that, like, that's the type of stuff that we have to watch out for. And yeah, I mean, and I would say, like, aside from all of the scandals and the church hurt and the things that people like to bring up, that's kind of our greatest weakness is like, we have to watch out for the success. Like, we should really just start being really skeptical of it, because that's like one of the things that could really mess us up is seeing success on the outside. So that's when you really need to just get as close to God as possible. But anyway, so I spent too much time on that one. But another type of person is someone who goes, just like I was saying about someone who's like, well, I do this and I'm a good person, or I feel like the opposite would be, well, what do I need to stop doing so that I can be taken off of the hell list? And those people, it's very telling, because these people, and I would say even the people who are like, how could a loving God send anyone to hell, blah, blah, blah. And ultimately, those people become dismissive of the idea of hell. But I think they're kind of in a similar camp where they are just simply consumed with the idea of punishment. And it's very telling. I really don't know how internally, like what you need to do, what a person can do to get out of this camp. Apparently it happens though. So it's a mystery to me, like how people, I'm trying to break things down, but how people actually convert and become Christians is a complete and total mystery to me. Because somebody who is so consumed with punishment, that minute and a half, that precious minute and a half that you can even conceptualize hell, and all you're thinking about is, what do I do to get out of it? Well, what do I do to get out? How do I get, like, God sending people to hell? Like, how do I not go there? How do I, and you're, it's just like those people in class that are like, what's the answer to number 2? What's the answer to number 3? What's the answer to number 4? It's like these people are not concerned with learning, yet somehow they want to do well on the test. And it's this weird disconnect where it's like, do you realize that you're missing the point? Like, I understand that you want to get the test because you're just trying to avoid the punishment that comes with failing a test. You're trying to avoid the punishment of hell. And you really need to get to the point where if you're going to entertain the idea that God is real and that he sends people to hell, you should maybe try to focus on the fact of like, hold up, there's a God. He created me. He created this world. Like at some point, that knowledge needs to trump the hell knowledge. Like it's really, really important, y'all. It's really like right there on the surface. I just feel like no one is really hammering this because they're so, if you get any Christian willing to talk to you about hell, they're going to get cornered into the how could a loving God, and then we have to say God doesn't send anyone to hell. Hell is not designed for humans, it's designed for the devil and his angels, and he doesn't send anybody. And it's sort of like a technicality. It doesn't really satisfy anybody. I feel like everyone's unsatisfied. But it's really, really key that if you're gonna entertain that hell, that God is gonna send you to hell maybe and get scared about it, get happy about the fact that you can literally ask God anything because he is all knowing and he's up there. Is there anything that you'd like to know? Like, can we get excited about the first fact, which is that God is up there and there is a hell? Like, really, really try to get into that feeling. And that's why I say, like, hell is kind of a cool subject because it's one of the few ones that will get you right there to understand, like, the authority that God has, the bigness of God, the judge aspect of God. He is the judgiest judge, not judgy, but like the holiest bench that exists, the holiest gavel, like the spawn of all judging and laws. Like, you can't even imagine how majestic this courtroom is. Just his judgments alone will just have you in awe. Like, it'll have you in awe. And that's why I like a lot of people when they say that they go to hell and they see people and they're like, yeah, the people are there aren't going, why am I here? Like, they like, if you're having the experience, you might be thinking that, like, what just happened because you were just sleeping in your bed a minute ago. But as far as like being there and not knowing what you did to get there, nobody's like that. Everybody knows why they're there. Nobody's going, well, who do I complain to? Where's the hotline? Where's my petition to get out because this is BS? No one is doing that. Everybody understands perfectly why they're there. And they're literally just consumed with the idea that they're there. I kind of have like a pet belief that doesn't contradict anything, but it's just not something that people say. But I do think that it's possible to get yourself out of hell. But that's the thing about hell. Like, if you knew how to do that, you wouldn't be there at all. I always like, it's kind of like this kind of, I don't know, it's not OCD. It's not like I do it every day, but every once in a while, it's just like when I'm watching a hell testimony or whatever, and I'm just like, dude, what if God, like, what if you have to be sent to hell? Like, what if God sent you to hell? Like, what's going to be your plan? What's your game plan if you said something, So this is something, I'm not trying to make fun of y'all for having that, because literally everyone has that. It's natural to have that because you can't get away from it. You probably think it's your Judeo-Christian country and culture that's making you freak out about the idea of hell, even though you kind of grew up with nothing and you have no reason to have that. And you think we did it, the people on the outside did it to you. It's somewhere, even though it's nowhere. We've clearly just like stripped it all from society, thinking that once we do that, our fear of hell and judgment and all of these Christian concepts will go away. But all that happened is you took away all the stuff that makes this place good and wise, and all of the the strides that we made as a country using the Christian values pretty much got lost to time, and everyone's forgotten everything. But you thought that's what you needed to get rid of the judgment feeling, but turns out it's still there. And the reason why it's still there is because the Bible is true, and you are suppressing the truth in wickedness, which is what the Bible says about it. So we all have a tendency to do that, even me. And sometimes I'll just be like, dude, what happened? And it's like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to beg for mercy, period, because God gives mercy out. And the Bible literally says, I'll give mercy to whoever I want to give mercy to. Like, there's no law against mercy because it's good. I've talked about that a little bit before, but, spoiler, there's all the things that are 100% good and perfect, there's no law against them. You can just do them for eternity, and as long as you want to do them. And the fruit of the Spirit all counts as all like that type of stuff. So love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Just start. But anyway, so God has mercy on whoever has mercy. And it seems really like simple. And I think that people get themselves, it's not like it's not a trick. It's just, this is what I'm saying. If people knew how to get themselves out of hell, they would. And God knows if it's genuine or not. So you can't, he's looking at the heart. So, while it's good to have tools, you can't use the tools to fool him, just so you know. So you can't be like, it didn't work. I don't know what to tell you. I told you what to do, what the solution was. If you took that and made it something it wasn't supposed to be, like, I can't help that. But like, I'm just begging for mercy. Like, I'm not going to try and justify and be like, well, I did this stuff. And, which a lot of people it's just like a knee-jerk thing, I guess. You want to just immediately be like, well, I prayed the prayer and they told me to do this and that's what I did. Well, I just did, and just to sort of shift the blame to these other things. And even with my little preparation, I think it's really hard to fathom, like, just the allness of what God is. And if you're standing in front of him, you're probably not. I mean, if you have access to any of those faculties, like, I really hope you don't use them to be like, well, there was a miscommunication, because right there you're indicting him, like, just so you can be righteous. Like, we are really jacked up. Like, you really just need to just beg for mercy. Beg for mercy, and he'll probably give it to you because he's merciful. And he's really just trying to get you to understand what's really going on here, and the severity of what's going on, and like what this thing is. And you begging for mercy is at least some semblance of understanding where you're at and what you're doing. It's like when you go and visit some king or whatever, you're not just walking up in the place. You're bowing down. You're trying to figure out, it's just like have some awareness of your surroundings. I mean, we all hate the person who doesn't seem, that TikTok video gets lots of comments when you see somebody who is just like, bro, like, have some respect. Like, wait. So don't do that in front of God because you're so scared of hell. Like, so I guess number one is like, first of all, relax. Like, yes, hell is scary, but God being who he is should trump the idea of you just being uncomfortable for eternity. You're just so like, it's like when somebody wants to break up with you or you don't want them to break up with you. It's like, okay, you're so frightened that I'm going to break up with you. Like, I wish you were as frightened to hurt my feelings as you are to not be alone. So, and it takes some time with people in a relationship to realize, like, this dude doesn't care about me. He just don't want to be by himself. And for you to get the courage to be like, well, maybe I'm kind of the same way and this needs to come to an end. So it's really interesting how we see how when it comes to other humans, it's like, oh, it's so easy. It's like, cut that person off. Get that person there. You're like, just cut him off. That's enough. Kick him to the curb, girl. Yes, queen. Like, you don't need to, you don't deserve that. But it's just like, don't let God do that. Y'all will just have a conniption. Don't let God clean house the way y'all like to clean house. It's like, you better have mercy because that's what you want. And that's the whole thing about judging. Like, we think like God is saying, don't ever make a decision about anything because it hurts the other person's feelings. And that's not what it is. It's just like he's saying to understand where you're at, have some respect for what's going on. Even though this isn't, day to day, it doesn't seem like everyone is special in any way, but everyone is made in the image of God. And you're doing something to them, you're doing something to him. It's like, understand the gravity. Like, don't just with a flick of your hand, reject someone because it's going to make you more popular or this or that. So it's about keeping what's important. So, and I do want to say, like, I don't know if I'm wrapping this up or not. I feel like I've said a lot of stuff on this list, but one thing that this lady said in the video that was really good, she said when she went and she saw a couple things, but she didn't see like demons. She didn't see anything like super scary, but she was in the fire. She felt it. It was terrible. And she knew that she was in a place with other professed Christians, which I've heard about many times. But she said, whatever sin is keeping you from repentance is the sin you will be punished with. And I was like, that's such a great way to remember this, because that's ultimately what's happening. If there's a rift between you and God, it's because there's some transgression. There's something between you that's keeping your relationship from being good. It's not on his part because he already sent Jesus to be the sacrifice for all of our sin, so that he has no reason to not accept you. Anything that could possibly keep you from being accepted has been taken care of. So it's your part that isn't done. And your part is likely repenting, asking for forgiveness, being convicted of the sin so that you can turn away from the sin. And so uh, if it's that easy, but also there's things that get us hemmed up that make it really hard for us to trust God, really hard for us to take that leap. It's like, oh, but I need my this, I need my that. Who am I if I'm not a celebrity? Who am I if I'm not, this person? Who am I without my boyfriend or whatever? He's the only person that's ever loved me, blah, blah, blah. And so these things that get us, and it's really sad because you just know on the other side in hell, they're just like, just give them a freaking baseball career. They'll go to hell. Like, they're just things that you think are so valuable that you took so long to attain and this and that. And the devil's like, yeah, go with that. They'll use logs, debris, a car, literally a gold watch. Like, can you imagine? People are just like, the gold watch is what did it. You would not come to God because you had to have a Rolex. So the devil's like, for goodness sake, go out and find the man a Rolex. We got another soul to keep from God. Like, that's what's going on. It's really sad. It's really sad. And all of these things, I mean, people are finding out. People are telling you, even if they're not religious, like how they get to the tops of things and it's just completely empty. And guess what you say? Well, when I get up there, it's going to be different for me. You didn't do it right. It's like wisdom, part of wisdom is being able to learn from other people's lives so that you don't have to do that same thing. And when you like literally refuse to do that because you're like, my life's different though. It's just hilarious. But yeah. So whatever sin is keeping you, which has got to be a big one. Like, it doesn't seem like it, but it's got to be pretty big to keep you from crossing literally the street to go and get this thing rectified with God, like, and just like signing your name to salvation. Like, that thing's got to be, yeah, you're going to be punished with that forever because you should never have let that happen. Like, that is insane. Whatever it is completely insane, dude. It's completely insane. Pride is a big one. Like, a lot of them are internal. Sometimes it's external things. But yeah, I just thought that's a really great way to remember, like, I don't know, great way to remember what? Like, let me just, because right after that, I thought of this really good thing that I feel like God just like dropped to me. And I was like, wow, that is really common sense and great. But basically, like, if you're just like, let's say you're watching this and you're actually have watched it this long and you're actually like feeling a little bit pukey and you're feeling like, first of all, that's a great thing. Can we like normalize conviction again? That is such a great thing that you can respond to the message and you start feeling like all this uncomfortable stuff. It is terrible, though. I have been there more than once. Like, it doesn't stop. It should never stop. Hopefully it's like maybe once every like 10 years instead of like maybe it like tapers off. You're not feeling it all the time, but as a Christian, you should still be able to tap into that pukey, like, am I in the wrong? Am I on the wrong side? Oh my gosh. And just have to like wrestle. But, the good news is you know where to go. You know what to do. And so to a degree, like, everyone kind of does. It's really sad. Like, everyone kind of know everyone's doing it. They just don't feel like they have the tools. And so they instantly feel like they need to run to an expert and find out. And it's just like the rock climbing thing. Like, yeah, you can go find an expert that can give you some whatever. But at the same time, everybody, you're all flesh bags that if you fall down, you're going to die. Like, just be careful. Like, be careful is what you need to do. Don't just think you're just the expert. Find the easiest stuff and just, you know what I'm saying? Like, don't find the steepest thing. Like, it's just kind of like that. It's like, yes, there's inside knowledge, but at the same time, like God made us all the same. Like, don't feel like, oh, but Christians are boring and this, and I don't want to have to go to a church. Like that just whole thing is just like they do this and they do that, and it's just like stop looking at this outside thing. Like you're a creation of God. Like you already are halfway there. The only thing that I would tell you is to get a Bible. Like to get a Bible. And I guess I am almost done because now I'm at my strategies to stay out of hell. So listen closely, everybody. So here's the thing that God gave me. So, and this kind of applies to like if you're already a Christian and you're already acquainted with the ideas of conviction and sin and like repentance and like how to pray and talk to God. But like literally anybody can do this. And there's a lot of people who, I won't say a lot, but there's a select group of people out there who have a relationship with God and they just have it. They just have it and they've always had it or they acquired it or whatever. A lot of these people, they're typically homeless, to be honest. Like they're homeless, they're not having luck on this earth because they're done here and they're not going to have luck on this earth and they don't need to have luck on this earth. God is just letting them exist here, and then they got the ticket straight up. They're just going because they have a relationship with God. And they understand how to do this. They understand how to do this, and they're not going to be at church probably. So it's kind of interesting, but. So basically, if you're one of these people, if you just want to be a wandering homeless person with just your own relationship with God and you just rely on Him for your daily whatever, and it just is a really real visceral thing that you exist with, you probably don't need any advice from me, but basically, at some point, you're going to disobey God. Like you're in that place. A lot of you guys are in that place. You feel that you're in that penalty box. How do you get out? Oh, well, I just used illusion and I just pretend like it's just my own hangups and it doesn't really exist. Or you should either, once you disobey God, once you realize there's a transgression, that place that you're in, it should either cause you to beg for forgiveness from God or to see your own sinful state. Ideally, both. But those are the two things that should be happening. And that's how you know that you're still sort of in God and you haven't left. But, like, if you do something and you feel that conviction and you go, oh, God, forgive me. Like, but maybe it's something, maybe you're starting to get stuck in something and you don't quite know how to get out, like on that particular day that you feel it and you feel the conviction. But you're like, and you go, or, you're not done with it. And you know that. Like your flesh is like, we're going to do this tomorrow. Like, I don't know what you're doing all that forgive me stuff for. Like, we are not finished. Like, and it just really, then that should trigger like, wow, I'm in a terrible state. Like this sinful state that I'm in is like wild. Like you see how bad that you are. And so if you're doing anything other than those two things, that's where you can get into trouble. In that moment where you realize there's been an infarction, I guess, and you feel like you can't apologize to God. Maybe it's not something straightforward as some external thing. Maybe it's like something done against you and you want to like you resent that person for doing it. And you're like, no, but I'm right though, because they should have did this or that or whatever. The moment that you stand in the justification of it, of like, well, but this isn't fair because blah, blah, blah. Like that puts you in a different like that's going to lead you down a path that's going to be wrong. But like your two postures are God forgive me or wretched sinner, like am I, or both of those. And if you're going wretched sinner, like this is just making you feel terrible about yourself and this and that, you are delusional. You have not yet like come to grips with how depraved you are. Like, and what's crazy is like I think about a lot of movies where they show this, like it's not really an anti-hero, but um like the whole movie is just showing like how depraved people are, and like just think of a movie where you're not really rooting for them but you are following them, and it just you just see how it gets more and more depraved, and how this situation and then finding out this information, and this money was left to them, and so that changes the whole thing, and now they have to do this, and you're just watching this uh, degraded thing. And we kind of like watch that and we're comfortable watching it because it's like, look at some people, and it's like, dude, if you don't have a revelation, if you haven't yet had the revelation, just like the whole iced tea thing I keep bringing up, it's like it bears repeating, because it's like you cannot, if world hunger was just a matter of you abstaining from iced tea for 6 months, you could not save the world. And you would have to tell the world, sorry, world, God gave me the end world hunger uh, assignment, and I simply could not do it. If he'd have told me to do any other thing than what he told me to do, I couldn't do it. And I honestly think that is part of the point. Like, you really need to see how bad you are. And one of the major ways to see that is following God, because um, a lot of people think it's just like this outward, it's just about guilt and this like constantly like raking yourself over the coals. And it's like, no, once you just really set your mind to do something, for God, and you see how dismal and how you can't, like, it's so upsetting. It's a little bit traumatizing. It doesn't have to be major. But you just need to acknowledge it and just realize again where you are, where God is, and that he the way that he has us alive right now is just really like it's a choice. Like it's really gonna be amazing, but it's such a hot mess. Like, I don't want to get too off on the subject because like as soon as I said that thing about the tea again, I thought about the rich young ruler and just how Jesus, it wasn't like Jesus was trying to make him look like a complete total loser and like, see, you think you're so great, but like you can't even give up all your possessions. But at the same time, like it kind of was, because it's not like, oh, if the rich young ruler just did what he said and was able to obey God, like he would be able to like um that's the point. He could have gave him. He said, I've done all of the other things. Like I've always kept these since my childhood. I've kept these since birth. He's like, well, one thing you're missing. It's the one thing you're missing. And surprise, the one thing he was missing is the one thing he absolutely couldn't do. Like, big surprise. So, and then he went away sad. But it's like, yeah, that's the state that we're in. And that's why we need God to have mercy on us. So it's really, really simple. It's really simple, but it's just like, the context, the way that people are, the way that people accidentally, or I don't know, the way that people have faulty views of things, and then the faulty views that are sort of foisted upon us, like makes you think all these weird things about it. But it's really just about knowing where you're at, reading the room, and it's surprisingly simple. Just like the fact that the Bible is the truth. It's in every hotel room. It's in every library. It's collecting dust on your shelf. It's right there. Like, doesn't that sum up, like, look at this life that you're living? Isn't that more likely? The likelihood that it is somehow hidden in the mountains of India and it's 100 million different gods you have to go through, like, you can't do that in your lifetime. Like, and the devil knows that. These tangential things that, oh, well, you're descended from, you're actually reincarnated and you used to be Cleopatra. It's like, really? We all used to be historical figures? Like, I've yet to hear anybody that said that in their past life, they were literally just like washwoman 17 that lived on the outskirts. Like, it's never that. It's always like, anyway, like, I don't want to get into all that, but like, but somebody should. I mean, yeah, no, I'm not trying to like offend everyone's religion, but at the same time, like, the religions themselves are offensive because they're keeping you from God, and they need to be challenged, because this is your life. This is life and death. You're scared to death of punishment. Well, I'll tell you what's not going to help. Pretending like God doesn't exist, like, and being full of demons so you don't have to think about it. Like, that's not helpful. So, yeah, I think that hell exists, and you need to think about it more. Oh, and my second thing, aside from just how to deal with internally, how to deal with disobeying God, another strategy to stay out of hell is reading the Word. And that sounds super boring, but really understand what it means to like read the Word, and like what you should be getting out of it. Well, you should be getting life out of it. And just like if you were with your friends, it's like, do this with your friends. Like, read the Word with your friends. It's not even so much like, oh, have a Bible study and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, do that. Because your friends or anybody, any other people, they can bring insights to the Word. And that's really like, I feel like that's a big part of what it's meant to do, because he gave all of us like a little piece of everything, and we all have these different insights. And so when we get together and we read the same passage, and then we bring all of these different facets to it, it makes it interesting, it makes it alive, and God can speak to us, and that's fun. It's just like if you were to, when you go to a movie and you get out of the movie and you're all talking about the movie, it's like, oh, well, why do we need to talk about the movie? We all saw it and we all know what it said. We all saw the same thing. It's like, okay, you would never say that. It's like, oh my gosh, in the part where, the guy leans in and he says such and such, it's like everyone's talking about the movie, because you bring out things and you relate it to life, and it makes this rich thing. Like, that's what you're supposed to do. You're not just supposed to read the Bible to get the instructions. It's not the car manual. Like, it is a little bit, but it's meant to be enjoyed. So even if you just have zero knowledge and you don't know anybody, I think it'd be super cool to get a second person who's willing to do it, to read the Bible with you and open that thing up, because the more you start at zero, at nothing, the more that God tends to kind of sweep through and show you something super cool. So stop looking for your Christian friends, honestly, because unless you're doing that because you're a Christian friend, you have observed them and you're like, that person's legit. Don't just go, well, I think I know a Christian. Do you? Blah, blah. Like, just go read that thing and get like that fresh ground floor revelation from God. Like, and because that's what you'll do from then on. And that's better than whatever musty old thing that most Christians are doing because they heard somebody else say it, who heard somebody else say it, who heard somebody else say it. So, yeah, just get like one or two other people, open that thing. Like, that actually is super fun. Like, I wish I could do that kind of. Like, that would be cool. Proverbs is good. If you're by yourself, I would read Psalms. I pick Psalms because Psalms is the attributes of God. And if that guy doesn't appeal to you in Psalms, then You can just stop there. Like, you don't even need to do anything else. Don't read about Jesus if you're not going to take Psalms. Like, a lot of people try to start you off with Jesus, but then I feel like that's a trick because you think you're getting somebody that you may not be getting, or that you think that you're getting that might not be the guy. And then you end up going years down a journey that you don't even really want to go on. So David's going to tell you the guy that you're trying to worship. So I would start in Psalms. If you're with other people, I would do with other people. You might want to do the Gospels with other people. That's probably what you should do. And then, yeah, those are good things to start off with. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Acts, maybe, but Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John for sure. So yeah, that's what you should do. Just go open that thing, and if you don't have the courage to do it, or you don't feel like you'll have the incentive to do it by yourself, find somebody else who's willing to do it with you. Because I guarantee you, two people who have no idea what they're doing, suddenly finding a map, that's God with you. That's God with you, because how do you explain that? So you need that proof. So if you need that proof at all, go do it on your own by yourself with no expertise whatsoever, and report your findings to me, because that would be super fascinating to me. Okay, I've talked super long, and I don't know. I feel like God was helping me because that was just like such a tornado and whirlwind thing. But I also feel sorry for anybody who has to listen to this back. So Lord, put your stank on it, your holy stank on it, and make it interesting to somebody, because I am not doing this again and I'm going to post it. So y'all be blessed. And I'll probably do another one of those entries from that book like tomorrow or whenever.